So I'm sure by now anybody that cares is already well aware of the crew server shutdown situation and how it pertains to the much larger issues, more substantial issues of not only game preservation, but also game ownership in this digital hellscape that we're all currently trapped in. Now I know that I'm fairly late to the party on this one, just like I know that practically everything I'm about to say has probably come out of somebody else's mouth at one point or another. And look, I know next to nothing about the games industry from a business perspective. So, as far as I'm aware, um, my opinions here may be way off base. But what I do know for certain is that I am a gamer. I am somebody who has, since as far back as I can remember, I've had a very deep seated passion for video games. Therefore, I buy, play, and enjoy video games. And I, like um, countless numbers of you out there in YouTube land, have been personally victimized by this situation. Conservatively, I would say that I've probably tried starting the crew, we'll just call it between 2 and 3 times. Never got around to finishing it for one reason or another. And I guess I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? At this point, I might as well just hold off until I get the sequels and then I can play them more consecutively. And I don't know, probably review them or rank them, um, turn them into content for the channel in at least some capacity, right? That was until the internet decided to inform me one day that not only was I going to lose the ability to do that, but from that point forward, my PS4 copy that is sitting on my shelf would essentially have about as much, roughly about as much functionality as a paperweight. And naturally, I'm rather upset by this. Uh, Naturally, I've got some things that I would like to say, some opinions that I would like to share. Not very many, just a few bullet points to touch on. The first of which, and this is directed not only at Ubisoft, but I would say gaming companies across the board. I personally find your whole little argument about us not owning the games we buy, but instead essentially renting licenses to use them, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. Um, I find this argument completely and totally asinine, for one thing, and dare I say, borderline insulting to my intelligence as a gamer and as a consumer. Let me tell you why. Because I know that I don't own the game, as you've so eloquently put it. To me, that would mean that for the money I give you, I would uh, be getting basically, all of the source code and all of the little intricate files and such that it would take to build the game from scratch. When you go to the store and pick up any real media in this context, whether it be video games, movies, a CD or a vinyl record, a book, um, you are paying for a mass produced, mass printed copy of whatever that thing is. When you buy a book from me, for example, I am not giving you access to the um, Microsoft Word document that it's printed on, nor am I giving you any of the various art files and things that it would take to piece it together. You're getting a copy printed from the master file that I possess. It's it's always worked this way, and I just think it's really stupid to start complaining and making a big issue as far as these companies go of the specifics now. Bullet point number 2 would be that I just, for the life of me, can't wrap my brain around or fathom the mindset that it would take to justify erasing a game from existence. Whether a game is good, bad, or anywhere in between doesn't change the fact that somebody created it. That numerous amounts of staff have spent hundreds and hundreds of man hours, um, blood, sweat, tears, and passion to make it. That is somebody's art, and how easily you can just discard that. How much of a slap in the face that it must be, because essentially you're saying to all of these people, despite all of the the talent and the passion that you gave us and the um, uh, amount of duress and stress that we put you under with deadlines and God knows what else. Yeah, despite all this, what you created, what you gave us, really doesn't mean that much to us, and therefore is currently rotting in a dumpster, so to speak. And I just, as a creative person myself, that the thought of that, the thought of that amount of negligence on behalf of these companies, frankly, makes me sick, and I just don't understand it. Bullet point 3 is just the mere fact that all of this is just so ridiculously unnecessary and so easily avoidable, right? All we wanted was for you to put an offline mode in the game. You know, that thing that you put into the sequels and pretty much ensured their longevity. You know, the thing that you put into those as a consolation prize for being pissed off about this whole thing. And you can't tell me that, you know, there's any real excuse for it, because the community has already found within the files that it was baked in. There was an offline mode baked into the game that essentially just wasn't turned on. You just didn't flip the switch and activate it. It was as simple as that. And you know, I think there's an argument to be made when it comes to different communities doing things involving emulation, modding, piracy to some extent. You know, there's an argument to be made when it negatively affects a company, when the game in question is either still active, still making the company money, or maybe the company plans to do something with that in the future that, you know, what you're doing is affecting it. There's a case to be made for, you know, things like that being shut down, or, you know, people getting sued. Not saying it's right in every case, just that, you know, I think there is a case to be made with certain circumstances. But in a case like this, where you're essentially coming out and admitting that, you know, this is a dead game, that means very little, if nothing, to us, and we're obviously not interested in it making us money anymore. At that point, why not just release it to the people? Why not give it to these talented communities that are more than willing and more than passionate enough to put forth the time and effort that you are clearly lacking, or that you clearly would? And I say that because I want this video to end on a positive note. Despite everything that's gone on with this, there are some good things that have resulted from it. For one thing, there is the Stop Killing Games initiative, which essentially seeks to stop what happened to the crew from happening to games in the future through more um, on more of a legal or legislative level, right? Um, I have followed them since the beginning, and it has been a very, very rocky road for them. Um, but I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to look into them and give them your support. Um, Another thing that I just actually learned about is something called um, the Crew Unlimited, which is essentially members of the community attempting to resurrect the game via server emulation. And from what little I've been able to learn in a short amount of time, they have 100% of the single player campaign up and running again, and they are currently working on some of the other um, game features. Um, their focus primarily is more on the PC end of things, but they are hoping that that will extend eventually to consoles, being that they are aware that um, the bulk of players affected um, do stem from console based copies, right? Um, and as far as I'm concerned, yes, I would like, to get some functionality back from the copy of the game that I already own. Um, but, whether it becomes abandonware or that I can just download or something that I have to pay for, you know, I don't really care. However, that's gonna work. I don't really. It doesn't matter as long as I get to sit down and play through the campaign, the single player story mode campaign thing from start to finish at my leisure. Any way that that's possible works for me. Um, and I guess in closing, I would just add that situations like this with communities doing such great work, talented people coming together to do these types of things really just gives me hope, and it's just further evidence that no game truly has to die. No game has to be erased from existence forever. But until next time, guys, that's going to wrap this video up. And as always, take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.